Welcome one, welcome all. Find you a seat, we'll bring you some ale to the table. While you wait for the rest of your crew, tell us all about your adventures in Phelan. I'm Lore Master Matt.
And I'm Phelan Jon.
Welcome back to the Sleeping Grush podcast, your source for information from every corner of the world of Phelan. And we are brought to you today by the Cardboard Corner Cafe, and one of whose rooms we're sitting right now, just chilling in the air conditioning. Beautiful large table. Perfect.
Yeah, we're not doing this remotely.
We're not doing
we're
this
all
remotely.
in person
That's
here.
right.
Yeah, nice.
That. Even producer Jager sitting down at the end of the table with the big thumbs up right now.
Playing Galaga.
We saw that.
No. What is that? Is that spider salt? What is that?
Yeah, spider salt. Oh my God.
I called it.
Got a great big table here that's perfect for RPGs. You can rent this room by the hour. Great drinks, great food here at Cardboard Corner Cafe. If you are in the Kansas City area, it's a perfect place to stop to play some games. 2 different locations, Lenexa and Overland Park. All right, for our On the Table segment today, Jon, what have you got going on your paint table?
Everything.
He says that, and you may think he's jesting, but he's not.
Well, so I have, as you'd expect, Bob, as you'd expect, I have a extensive collection of Free Blades models because we make them. You know,
There's,
right? I mean,
he just grabs them off of the
I
warehouse.
go into the warehouse and just do my thing. So that does not mean that they automatically become painted. Right?
Wouldn't that be nice?
That would be nice. Well, actually, no, really, no. I used to be that guy that farmed out a lot of stuff for other people. I really want to do my own thing, so I am behind on and I say newer models. Some of the models I'm behind on are not new,
a year-ish.
Right? Yeah. So I have the primary thing is my Varkrallen free band almost done. I did not do. I play tested Azura, but I did not do the Azura.
Right.
So they're almost done. I'm like doing several things at once, and they all get done at the same time. It's weird.
It is.
Then my table clears, and I put 5 more projects on, which is what I just did. But there's a lot of little eaches, like Painbringer, right? I don't have a second Painbringer. I need to paint him. A second Sky Sister. Right. There's a whole bunch of stuff like half done.
Yeah.
But I don't have a fightable Varkrallen or fightable Azura freeband. I need to get that caught up, and they'll be done very quickly. So I'd say the very next thing to come off the table is Varkrallens.
They looked really good too.
Yeah, some use of contrast. I'm not. I'm a liquid talent guy, big time. I don't want to rely on it entirely. Although I was thinking about, I was going to do some Viking shields entirely in contrast. Do all of them in a different contrast color, then go back, put the designs over the top.
Nice.
And I thought, I could do that with like K-rolls.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely you could.
So I think my K-roll unit's going to get sexed up a little bit.
Nice.
And whatever else has a round shield. I want to do some conversions of improvement.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. The shield's on their back, but you could take some other models and do that guy.
I've got a couple of Battle Maidens that I've turned into improvement.
Yeah.
So
other models Battle Maidens, Predators, other models that use those round shields. Yep. I'm going to go back and use the same idea and make the units colorful. For captains.
Awesome.
You have an army worth instead of a free band. But I have a number of things. There's a couple of Warth Fighters in there. There's a Golot Druid, all between 33 and 66% done. But I think the next one that will actually, enter the complete zone and come off the table is a Varkrallen.
Awesome.
So for our Spike and Win segment, where we talk about a recently played game, we have called forth Johnson County's EMS to be ready for Matt's PTSD expressions after he tells us how unlucky he was. So Matt, tell us about your game
You
against
know,
Jacob.
the portal was not friendly to me. There some propitiation that I made to the portal. Obviously, wasn't heard. Wasn't worthy, and she did not bless me.
I don't know how it wasn't heard. Everybody in the room heard Matt's dice problem. So tell us about the game.
So I'm putting together a bark crawling force.
Pretty,
I went all
very
in.
pretty,
I
yeah.
appreciate that. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're coming along really nicely. You'll get to see some improvements today on them. So got these bark crawlings out. I got the whole line. I doubled up on just about everything. Enough to take 4 different lists that I'm
Messing around
screwing
with.
around with,
Cool.
yeah.
Very cool.
And
That's how it's done. That's how it's done, dear listener.
That's right.
Right.
So we're squared off against Jacob Metzinger and his Khazaric force, right? So he was going to bring some bandits, and I thought that was going to be an interesting matchup. And then he brings in the Khazaric, and they're normally friendly. They're normally allies. Something happened, I don't know what they were fighting over.
An argument in some tavern.
Right.
Somebody's princess is involved, or prince,
Always,
or prince, right?
Maybe both.
Yeah, maybe right.
So, overall the game went very, very well. It was first
What
time
scenario?
Oh gosh, it was domination.
Domination.
Right. So
Really
we've got
popular,
the
yeah.
five objective markers out, and
Right.
you're going for them and trying to score points. And for the most of the game, I held obviously the 2 objective points on my side, and Jacob held the 2 on his side, and the middle one became something of a battleground. Which obviously that's what it's about. Tactically speaking, I think I did well for their first time out, messing with focus, which is a completely new thing for me. And honestly, since I normally play Khazaric or I play Corona, their play style, the Vercrawling play style, was something that I was having to get used to. Right, there's a lot of blade dancers. Your focuses come in, especially on your characters that aren't your Yuan Peng, right? So you've got 2 other monks that have them, and so there's an interplay that you gotta figure out. So everything went really, really well, except those die rolls. And everybody blames their loss on dice sometimes, but dear listener, we stopped counting at 23 cartridges. So I'll let you be the judge of that.
Here at Cardboard Corner Cafe, the best little game cafe in Kansas City, there is a dice jail.
There is a dice jail.
Are those dice in dice jail?
No, and I'll tell you why. Because I ran out of the house without my dice, and I was borrowing those dice from Jacob Metzinger.
That explains everything.
That
explains it all. Right?
So I couldn't just
even a shake of the head from Jager.
I know Jager's down
He's
there
agreeing with us.
Agreeing.
Yeah. Do you know the first die in the dice jail was Dooley's?
I didn't, but that's not surprising.
It was a campaign. Yeah, it was a campaign. It was right after the store opened. It's the dice jail here is 2 plexiglass panels in a wall, or making up half of a wall, so you can see out to the street. You can see out to the window.
Right.
But you could drop, I don't know, 3 foot maybe.
Yeah.
From the top, you drop a die inside it. Of course, you're not going to get it out of there again. You don't want to. You don't want to see that damn thing again.
Why would you? Yeah.
She rolled a D30 on the advancement table in the campaign game. Rolled a 1, but it was one of those games where you had the ability to re-roll advances for some reason.
Yep.
We've done that a few times.
Yeah.
And she rolled it again and rolled a
1
off the dice jail.
Yeah.
Black D30, first thing in the case. So, we should go convince Jacob he needs to.
Yeah,
drop his cheating.
Something's got to happen with those.
Feeding anti-friend dice.
It was so bad. He was feeding me more dice because he's a dice goblin, right? He's just got them everywhere. And he just keeps feeding me dice, and they just keep rolling 1s, and I'm like,
I see a trend.
Yeah, it was fun. It was really good time because I got to learn a little bit about the Vercrawling and learn about how they worked. I wish the dice had gone just a little bit better. I don't expect to be, rolling off the charts, but just so I could have figured out how things were working, for my movement, because
Yeah,
my
there's a
movement was
point
about
where
the
it
only
gets
thing
so
in my
bad
mouth.
you're not learning anything.
Yeah, all I'm doing is hanging my head in shame,
Yeah.
as everybody looks on.
Not silently, dear listener. I was at the next table over. It was
there was some grumbling.
there was going to be an intervention. It went on longer. All right. But you had a good time, right? Jacob's.
I did.
nicest guy in
Jacob's
the
a
world.
fantastic
Yeah.
opponent, and he did everything right. He played a great game. Even despite the fact that I was rolling horrifically, there were some times in there where obviously I was down in troops and things were going decently. Uh, by the end of things, he had controlled the middle objective, and he was moving towards my my objectives in both ways. It was going to be a nasty big fight and probably going to go over the 9 turns.
Right.
But no, it was a good game. Right. Besides the portal completely failing me, everything else went really well, and I'm looking forward to. You and I are going to dice off tonight.
We are.
And I'm looking forward to that.
I'm going to be doing some recruiting.
for those of you who can't see, and that's all of you, he's wearing a Candor shirt, right? So apparently there's going to be some of our Trawlins joining the Land of the Dead by the end of the evening, or so he thinks. I'm sure that's the case. But great thing about
I am
playing.
not going to force my dice on you, sir. You're on your own. You'll only have yourself to blame.
The great thing about playing Jon is you always learn. And one of the things we're going to focus on tonight is focus. And,
focus on focus.
I think that's going to be really good for me, learning something completely new.
Yeah, so we're going to focus on that, for sure. Okay, today's podcast, main subject.
Down to our main subject. And it's
World Anvil.
Yeah, it's World Anvil. And,
okay, so Matt, you're going to start by telling the dear listener, what is World Anvil?
So, and I put this in the agenda. Most people who've been with us for a while, who've been playing Free Blades or Brightsword for a while, know that World Anvil is a website designed for writers and RPG players where you can build out your world, where you can keep track of campaigns, and nominally, especially when we started, a place where you can deposit lore from your world. And it is a great site for what it is. We started using it 5 years ago at the height of COVID.
Yeah. Wow. 5 years. True.
It's true.
Right. Yeah. I didn't think of that. Yeah.
It was the height of COVID. I just went into the second agenda item, but it just paired so well.
Sure,
there. Yeah. We started using World Anvil in 2020. We knew that there was going to be a time period. Of course, nobody knew how much at that point, where we weren't going to be able to get out and talk with our players and our fans. Nobody was going to be able to meet. And if we were going to carry on as a company, we were going to have to develop some secondary business practices. And this paired very well because it did 2 things. It allowed us to get information out to our players and lore out. And it gave us one place to put all of our lore. And in those days, the way that the World Anvil was structured, it was almost perfect for that. It wasn't as connected as we'd have liked as easily.
Right.
But, they were working on it, and it was very accessible and very promising.
Right.
So we adopted it, and there's close to 2,000 articles.
Yeah, it's crazy
on our
how
World
much stuff is
Anvil.
on it. Yeah.
Right now, which, if you think about it, is a lot of information. It's a lot of lore. It's a lot of characters. It's a lot of campaigns. There's just everything. Yeah, locations. There's just everything on it.
So we began using World Anvil, but it wasn't just because of the. It is because we do some of it through Patreon. Mm-hmm. It is a revenue stream, but we also did it for other reasons.
Well, yeah, I mean, there was a number of things that really stood out to us for how we did it. Number one, we needed a place to put our lore. We were getting so much at the time. We were able to put them into little PDFs for a while, and we gave those out. But there was too much.
Right.
And we wanted to be able to ramp that up. our lore production, also ramp up our campaigns and get those out to
Right.
people, right? Because we've been playing these little campaigns here in the Kansas City area for years and years and years. As long as I've been with the company, we play a couple campaigns a year, and we really wanted to get those out to people and
Sure,
allow
right.
other folks to use them. It was also a great place to put our global campaigns that we were doing at the time. There's so many reasons why World Anvil was readily and quickly adopted by us.
Okay. And what is it? Let's just start. Let's move through time. What was it originally good at doing? Right. What was the best feature of it?
I think the best feature of it at the time was accessibility. We could put things up and we could immediately drop onto our Discord channel that something was up and people could go with a link and just view it. It was so simple.
Right.
But we also were able to section that off for our Patreon folks. You know, the folks that were paying World Builder stuff, they'd get to see things ahead of time. Or there would be content that was strictly for them.
Right. Because you can tag articles by access.
By access, right. And you just drop them on and away you go. And so all of that at the time was super easy. There weren't any paywalls. There weren't any problems finding it.
Right, yeah.
You know, it was all very super simple.
And while it's not a fully relational database, it does allow you to link things, which we wanted.
It does.
So if you have a campaign, you'll have maps, right? You'll have characters, the patron. You may want to go link to the patron, see the full story behind the patron, full story behind the locales, full story maybe of the country it's in, you know, the faction.
Everything was right at your fingertips, mostly.
Yeah, mostly, right. Not fully relational.
Not fully relational, but really close.
You had parent articles and you had a sidebar where you could go in and you could, you know, list other things that they could link to directly that were related, you know, in some way.
And it was as close as we were getting at the time without having a wiki, and we'll talk about why that wasn't an option.
So tell us, Matt, why it's not working anymore.
You know, it's nothing against World Anvil.
No, they're great people.
Let's just say that they have from the start been very communicative. They have taken suggestions from us and all of their other users. But because they're getting popular, they're having to focus on a couple of things that they do very, very well. And one of those things is an RPG campaign setup. And the other is a place for writers to store their rantings, right? If you write, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Right.
You've got notes for everything. You've got little pieces of this over here and pieces of that over there. And, you know, some of them are coherent and some of them are not so coherent. And they're really good at being able to organize things for you. But one of the things that they're having to do also is, and you can't blame them for this, is make some money, right? So there's paywalls going up. There's less accessibility. It's harder to find our site, the World of Phelan on World Anvil, unless you are a paying member. And one of the things that we have always been against is charging a lot of money to do anything, right? We don't charge a lot of money for our rules. We don't charge a lot of money for our supplements. We don't charge any money for most of our supplements. And so having our lore and our campaigns,
especially the basic stuff. Now
especially the basic.
We did, you know, level up, you know, Lore Master, Chain Seeker,
World
Builder, articles that were, you know, specifically for that level.
Right.
But to go in and learn about the world, we wanted to be free.
Yeah, and there's, you know, obviously there's other things that are associated with, like the World Builder. You know, you're not just getting articles. There's a lot more to that. So now what we're facing is a lack of accessibility and getting harder and harder to find things on there because we have so much, it's overwhelming in that structure.
Right. What are we going to do about it?
Well, that's a really good question, John.
That's what I'm here for. You know, after that.
Phelan John is the epitome of the great question asker here.
right to the
just right into it.
So,
you know, we've been looking for a time. This is not a new problem. This is something we've seen coming.
Right.
we have watched them do what they do and do well. Again, nothing against World Anvil. But we knew from a pretty early date, a couple of years in, that we were eventually going to have to do something different
Right.
because we had too much information. It wasn't relational enough for us.
And it wasn't as searchable as we
It's
wanted.
not as searchable. Yeah,
The search function is surface only. If I wanted to find a reference to a character name that appeared in paragraph 7 of a story, as opposed to it was the title of an article,
right,
or a character of the character article, format,
right.
it doesn't produce that.
It doesn't do that. You have
Yeah.
to specifically tag that on the side, every name, to get that done. And unfortunately, that's a lot of work for
Yeah.
2,000 articles, and it's just not something that we can.
Yeah.
We have the
Should be
time to
a
do.
Google quality search engine. I put it in there. Anywhere in the article, I get returns.
Just spam, right?
So
So we've known for a while that we were going to have to do this, and we've been looking into ways to put our information out there. And we've had a couple of conversations with our world builders and change seekers on the Change Seeker Council
Mhm.
about how they would like to receive that information
right.
and what they think the best way to do that is. And a lot of folks want a wiki style format, and wikis are amazing. They're very relational. They have a great search function. But the wiki sites, if you go onto a site that hosts a wiki, they have rules about how you can do things on that site. And one of the things that they don't like are paywalls. They will not
Right.
allow paywalls. So obviously the Blades, the Bladesworn, Loremaster, Change Seeker, World Builder functions on Patreon cease to have any meaning there if
Right.
we would go to a wiki situation. The other thing that wikis do that we're not willing to do is most of them want to be completely editable by the public. And in a world where it's quickly becoming so easy to make your own figures, and we see a future where DGS can't make money off of figures because everybody and their dog can do it, our IP has to be controllable.
Yeah.
And an editable wiki
Yeah, it's our story to tell.
is not
And
gonna
we'll
be-
partner with players to tell our story,
and do.
but we're not going to let it be rewritten by someone randomly out there in the ether.
Right.
It's not going to happen.
So, so wikis, just a wiki site, just a basic wiki site is not going to be something that we can do. Love the setup, love the searchability, love the functionality.
So, Matt,
What we're looking at, Phelan John, is a wiki software that you can attach to your domain name. These are more complicated. They're going to take more time to flesh out, more time to learn. But at the end of the day, they provide us everything we need and the control that we want.
right?
And so that is the going
That's
right
today's
now.
current answer. Yeah.
Yes, because we had thought before we found the wiki software, the best answer is to build it ourselves.
Right.
And since we're all code slinging
Yeah.
website builders,
Yeah. That was sarcasm.
yeah. We thought, geez, well, we'll just get that done.
We'll just knock it out. Yeah.
But that would give us the control that we wanted. And we would have to create our own, framework for that. With the wiki software, as long as we can get it onto the domain, we have the framework and the measures for the control that we'd like over it. And all we have to do is fill it out. Now, obviously, that bringing it over from World Anvil or our repositories online to a new site is going to take a long time. It's going to take us a while to learn the new software and to get it onto our site. So this is not a short-term solution, but I think it's where we're going to go permanently. And so it's going to take some time. And one of the things we ask is your all's patience as we make this huge switch. And we'll be throwing stuff out on
We will be,
PDFs.
right.
We're going to make this as seamless as we can. And while we're doing this switchover, we're also going to be improving these articles and the images and the maps and all of these and the ways that you all have been telling us that you want to see.
Right.
Um,
I'm working on Operation Moonlight right now.
which is
Yeah.
going to be so fun. We played Operations Moonlight 2-3 years ago, something like that,
That's
right?
correct. Yeah.
And that's going to be lot
It's
of
a
fun.
Bright Sword adventure.
Mhm.
It could also be played as encounters, but a Bright Sword
Absolutely.
adventure set during the Jaguar Crusade. You are behind enemy lines in Corona during the Trezrite invasion,
Yeah.
and working for one of the senior Coronans, M and J. So, but the players love that scene. So yeah. And there's a bunch of adventures like that. Like Matt said, we can over time in various formats that we need to. You're not going to wait to get content sent your way.
Right. Yeah.
So eventually, Operation Moonlight, we reload it into whatever solution we have.
Right.
In the short term, we're going to be throwing PDFs out there so you guys
Exactly
get access to content.
And there's some other ways that we've come up with that will get you this content ahead of time. And one of those, some of you may be familiar with it, some of you may not, is the website Royal Road. And that is
Funny, I was just going to ask you about that, Matt.
Were you?
I was.
John,
Crazy.
This is amazing. We're such a great team. Royal Road is a place where budding authors can go and drop their writing, usually chapter by chapter, right? So it fits very well with a Patreon kind of scheme. If you're a writer and you're looking to make some money, but you don't have a huge following yet, you can drop chapters and people can choose to support you. Royal Road also has a great partnership with a couple of different publishers, and you can apply right there on the website to have your story, your book published, cool. Right? So it's really cool.
We'll get further down the road with Bright Sword World. We'll have to slide it over, right? Yeah, sure.
I
never know.
There's some reasons that I chose this, right? So
okay. We'll be publishing Bright Sword World in 3 years.
By the time that you guys hear this, there's going to be some stories
right?
on Royal Road, because we've got the account set up and we're ready to go. So we're going to drop a few stories on there and see what you guys think of that that format. And some of the things that we've been working on, like Bright Sword War, we can drop chapters in and do more of the Royal Road format that people are used to. And we're hoping by doing that, obviously, not just will you go and read it, but folks on the website will go and read it and fall in love with the world of Phelan.
Awesome.
So,
excellent.
A couple of different ways that we'll be doing that.
Okay.
So be patient with us.
Be patient with us. That's the watchword. Matt said it best right up front.
Yeah. But we wanted, and some, a few
2,000 articles aren't going to slide into a relational database overnight.
They're not.
Just be patient.
And I know a lot of you are like, well, I mean, if you guys haven't even got started on this, why are we talking about it? Because you're going to want to go and find something on World Anvil one day and not be able to get there. Right. You're gonna slide in there.
We want you to know why.
Yeah, we want you to know why.
We'll help you find it when you go looking for it.
Yeah. And get
obviously, you a version of it if it's just inaccessible.
Right. If there's questions, obviously, contacting us on the Discord or media at dgsgames.com is a great email to reach me at, where you can ask lore questions just right there. Or, hey, where can I find this? Can you send me a copy of this, sort of thing? So that's why we're talking about it today. We want people to know where we're at. We don't want to, I kind of feel like, sometimes like, gosh, this isn't working. And, people are going to go on there and be like, what World Anvil, what lore, And we've got a whole lot of new players coming out of Adepticon and other places, some of the new stores that are really picking up. And we want you guys to know that there's a ton of this lore, and there's a ton of these different things that you can get on World Anvil. And, if they're inaccessible, we're working on it. We're moving in that direction.
Excellent. Okay, so.
All right, so the last segment for the day is our job board. And we have a job board question about gold cost and our models. How are those come up with? What's our
There's a short answer and a long answer. We're going to give you both.
Should I plug my ears for the short answer?
Probably hit your not safe for work button. Not safe for work button, people. Short answer, none of your damn business. Okay? But that's not fair. So we're going to give you the long answer.
Yeah.
All right. So, but I gotta give you a little bit of preamble. It's gonna take a minute. Just bear with me, okay? I am hugely biased about this subject,
Right.
and I wanted to give you why, so it fits the answer.
I think that's
Okay.
fair.
I started out as a game designer, apprenticing for a couple of different companies, and also studying it in school. I took courses, that were related to it in school. Statistics courses, design theory, all that sort of thing. And was a freelance playtester for a long time for multiple companies. I am also a competitive gamer. Gold cost only matters in competition, right? You're trying to balance the forces between two players or two sides that are going to be in competition with each other. If it wasn't for competition, who cares?
Right. Just telling stories.
So I have a long history of it with respect to being a player out in the community, playing dozens of game systems that have point values, but also being involved with companies that have produced and are producing games that have point values for their systems because they're played competitively. So the number one thing you need to walk away from this conversation with is all gaming point value systems are 100% arbitrary. Any game designer tells you that their game has it all figured out. They've got it ratcheted down the math to the fifth decimal place, and they got a total handle on the value of all the different systems in their game. They are lying to you. Okay, it can't be done. I'll give you an example. Right, I'll just give you a very simple example. Let's say you're playing a World War II game, and the Allied player has a Churchill tank. Okay, one of the most heavily armored tanks of the war. And armed with a 6-pounder gun. They had other armaments, but the standard version had a 6-pounder gun. And the other player is a German with a Panzer II. Okay, the Panzer II's weapon system, no weapon system in the Panzer II can penetrate any aspect, including a rear shot, on a Churchill. The 6-pounder gun will go through a Panzer II like a knife through butter. So if I set the value of the Churchill at 50 points, how many points is a Panzer II?
Right.
Okay. Now, what common game theory will tell you is figure out how many Panzer IIs it takes to kill a Churchill, right? And that's, divide that into 50, right? So if we take 2 of them to 25 points apiece, if it's 5 of them, 10 points apiece. It can't be done. So it is absolutely a mixture of both art and science, okay? Which means if you're going to, and the best thing that you can do is get close and kick it into place. Right? So your methodology for determining it, which we used when we started out, is to assign values to things and then play it, not preferably have your players play it and then go back and fix it and then make them pay for the fixes.
Right.
Not saying anybody does that, because I don't have to say that anybody does that.
Who would do such a thing?
I don't have to say it. It's called consumer playtesting in our business. And we've all done it, So when we originally playtested Freeblades, we assigned point value. We'd already been messing with a different game that we built Freeblades on top of. So we kind of had that a starting position. If you set, parry at X gold and dodge at Y gold and die hard at Z gold, you're guessing. Right? You can do some math. You can put 2 models in a simulation, have them fight each other, and if one, is killing the other one 2 for 1, then you probably need 2 of those other guys to fight the first one. That's simplistic. Right? It doesn't really work that way either, but you get close, and then you refine it. Right? So you need a basic understanding of the math of these situations and the ability to simulate engagements. But you also need to take into account synergies. Right. Right. And often what players do is they look at a situation on a ping pong table. They don't care about the terrain. They don't care about the scenario, the task that these models have to perform.
Right.
They take 2 models and say, this one's overcosted because every time these 2 fight, you beat them 3 out of 4 times.
Right.
Okay. Well, is that how it's really going to be? Right? You're going to be playing on a flat table with no terrain and not have any scenario objective, but have these 2 models fight each other, So it is, because it is arbitrary, to some great degree, that means that it is part art and not all science, then it is somewhat experiential and opinion based.
Right.
Okay. It's based on our experience with it. And my experience of over, sorry to say, decades. So I'm going to need a scotch after this, Matt. My experience over decades is having been involved with other companies prior to being involved with DGS, and having been in the mix of players talking about point value systems, or being working for the company in a freelance situation,
right?
But listening to the players talk about our work, there's no good end to a discussion of point values,
right?
You'll get everything ranging from "it doesn't feel right, I had a bad experience," to the person who sends you a Google sheet with 5 tabs, 50 cells per column, 80 rows, 6 decimal places, telling me why I'm wrong.
Right.
Too bad. Get your own game.
Right.
Okay. And it sounds mean, right? You will be able, you already can, if you really want to, you can already figure out what some of these things cost.
You can reverse engineer some of
You
this.
can reverse engineer most of it.
Yeah.
And when we give you the conversion between Brightsword and Free Blades, the next version of Brightsword, you'll be able to reverse engineer almost all of it.
Yeah.
Right? We're just not going to talk to you about it.
That's right.
It is not valuable time.
Yeah.
Because the question becomes, why is parry X but prowl Z?
Right.
To what end am I going to spend talking about that?
Right.
One of the people who taught me about game design, Stephen Cole, who runs Emerald Design Bureau, made Starfleet Battles, Federation Empire, games like that. Very, very intensive games, especially Starfleet. Lots of rules, lots of interactions. They would get why questions and this is back in the day when they got mailed in.
Right.
By a letter with a stamp on. They would collect them, and they would do 2 things. They would post them in the captain's log, their house organ, their magazine. And then also there'd be the session every con where, Steve would go find some comfy chair in one of the hotel lobbies or ballrooms, and we'd all gather around, and we'd be able to throw why questions at him, and he'd just have another drink after another drink and answer the ones he felt like and not. We should do that.
We should
do that. The more I say it, the more I like the idea. But anyway, because it just doesn't get you anywhere. There's just going to be that person that doesn't matter how well you explain why you chose what you did. They're not going to agree with you.
Right.
And they're going to argue, either on a experiential basis or on a pseudo math basis.
Right.
I've run this, and I've rolled 1,000 dice. I've matched these 2 models up against each other. These 2 never, and we'll listen. It's not like we're going to blow it off.
Right.
We're just not going to engage in a conversation about it.
Right.
But every time we hear one of those things, it goes onto the dashboard that Colin and Jeff and I share to see if it's an issue. When we come up to that row, we take it aside, we look at it, we mess around. Do we feel this is a problem? Yes, no. It never gets deleted.
Right.
It might get stored in the back end of that. We'll come back and take a look at it later because none of us think it's a problem.
Yeah.
Because it might show up again. We might have a second player of the same experience.
Right.
So we're not blowing it off. We're not engaging. It's a company policy. We do not engage in conversations about the gold cost of model.
Yeah.
And
you were talking
until you join. I think that was ultimately Colin's bottom line. We had him on the edge. And I'm like, if you join us, that whole policy about not talking about the point system, you own it then. You have to defend it. You have to argue about it with us.
Right.
Just come on in. Oh, that was it. I think I put it in. But so it's don't. I think this question, the job board question, I asked on Discord, I thought the guys handled it really well. We made it into a humorous thing.
Yes.
We talked about dartboards and magic 8 balls and just rolling a D22 and
right.
Adding 5.
And sometimes it may seem like that.
Yeah, that's true. It may seem like that. But what is dodge 1, 2 points, or 3, or 1?
Yeah.
Should it change if their agility goes up?
Right.
Does the fact that they're paying for their agility matter enough, or should there be some other surcharge? And in those cases, those synergy items, they do matter.
They do.
You know, and the fact that a model exists in this faction with other models that have a very sweet synergy with them also impacts that decision,
Right.
You know, and what we're trying to do is we're trying to make it not your problem.
Yep.
Okay. If we discover an issue, we had an issue with the one time we corrected a model upwards. Stoneclaw Savage.
I was just going to talk about that.
Right. We went back and because a player mentioned something about it. It was on the dashboard. When we got the chance to look at it, we discovered there had been a math error. We calculated net miles points, and we went back and we fixed it.
That's right.
And we are hard over on never taking a model and making it more expensive. Yep. We may adjust the talent. We may drop its cost. We don't want to make something more expensive because you spent your money on it. Other people do it to you.
Right.
You know, right. All of a sudden it gets nerfed or it gets its cost changed. You know, we can spend a whole podcast on the examples like think of times I've been screwed over by that.
In the last week.
Yeah. So the bottom line is we are listening to these issues, bring us a specific issue. I think there's a problem with X. Okay. I think it's undercosted as a model. You know, I'd like you guys to take a look at it. I just really think I see these two things. I don't understand why this one is only paying 27, this one's 32. You know, we will put them on the dashboard. We'll look at them in time. Engage in a conversation.
Right.
It's just we have other things you want us doing besides that.
We do, and you know, it's funny because we had this conversation last week at the Change Seeker Council. For those of you who don't know, Change Seeker Council is a group of players who have bought into the Patreon. They subscribe and help us out on the Patreon.
And one of the benefits of the Change Seeker level is once a month you get to hang out with us and help provide input to design decisions.
Right. And we were talking about some things. Well, I mean, this
isn't Signal. We're not going to talk about the open,
right? You know? But we were talking about some things, and this very thing came up, not related to just gold cost, but to some other work that we're doing within the company. And if you guys really want to get in on that conversation, the Change Seekers is the place
to do it. That's true.
Right. We will obviously engage every bit that we can with issues that you're seeing. But if you really want to be in on that conversation and you really want to contribute to it, you know, the Change Seekers on Patreon is the place to be.
Yeah, and I'll give you one example. The original cost of the diehard talent did not survive. Right, when we first started with the playtest thing, we made some adjustments based on some math simulations and some playtest games, right? And so the idea that, you know, if I told you that Die Hard 1 was worth 2 points, whatever, right? Okay, it's not how it works. But Dodge 1 was only worth 1, and you think, oh my God, you know, that makes Dodge really cheap, and I don't think that's right. And hey. You know, if that was true, that's not how it is. But if that were true, we got there because we had a baseline, we had a reason why we assigned the original point value, and then we bashed it into place over time. Right. And I will tell you, it's hard. You know, I'm biased. You guys tell me you think there's a game out there that's better balanced, or takes less advantage of its players doing its playtesting for them.
Right.
After they purchase the game. I mean, we have playtesters that, you know, join us and help us with the game.
Absolutely.
I'm talking about after you bought it, we just meet the deadline, farm it out there. Oh my God, that thing should really have been, you know, 200 points instead of 170. Not that I have something in mind.
Right.
You know, right? But you can clearly see when it's you know, and we go back and we change it after you've already bought it and you've played it a certain way. And, you know, we'll make mistakes, but they'll be honest mistakes and we'll fix them. It's our job to fix them, not yours.
Right.
So there is no one better.
Producer Jager.
Producer from the sidelines.
That's right. I appreciate your support.
We do, and we appreciate all your support. We love that you're asking questions. This is a really good question.
It is. Yeah, it's a very good question.
Everybody wants to know, you know, in the back of their minds how they come to this cost.
If you have a concern, don't be shy about offering up the concern. I think X is undercosted, overcosted, and Y. Just it will go on the dashboard. We will talk about it internally. We're not going to engage in a public discussion about it.
Is Designer's Notes the
Designer's Notes? I think it's the best, but you know what?
I'd agree
we'll
with
take
that.
it anywhere.
Yeah.
That's what designer's notes is specifically for why questions.
Right.
It doesn't get answered as quickly as rules questions.
Right.
Now you know why.
Folks, we really appreciate you listening. And if you have another question you would like submitted to the job board section, you're more than happy to throw that up on the Sleeping Grush podcast channel on our Discord. Thank you all for listening. Thank you all for supporting us. Till next time, we'll see you around the table.
Sil Sakaba.